In this episode, we take a deep dive into fear. We will show you how to go beyond coping with fear and anxiety to having a new understanding that will change your relationship with the things that you're most afraid of. We look at why we get scared and what is it that we are actually afraid of. The answer may be different than you think, and fear may not be the enemy you may think it is. Enjoy the show. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, Molls. How are you?
I'm good, darling. How are you?
Very great. We'll just maybe ask each other once today. We did have a laugh about this earlier, saying we're cracking up the last couple of minutes before we started podcast, and I was like, oh, some of our pre-talk is actually much funnier and to the point. So I think we might have to do a sort of side X-rated show at some point.
Yeah, that would be funny. Yeah, we crack up when we get together before the call. We just end up laughing the whole time and don't really get very much organised. So, yeah, and we said we ask each other how we are about 3 times each at the beginning of the call, and we must stop doing that. So it's lovely to see you all, though. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, lots of friendly faces already. Hi, Doe. Hi, Lollipop. Hi, Barney. Hi, Estival. All the cult family. Hi, Peter. Nice to see you all. Really excited for tonight, actually. I think it's going to be good fun. We've already had some good questions. So exciting. A huge subject as well, isn't it, Mark? Especially at the moment.
Yeah, I think always, though, always a big subject, fear. We all experience it. It's something that gets us all from time to time. And especially in the world that, as you say, we've been in for the last couple of years, it's been even more prevalent. So, yeah, it's just an important topic.
Absolutely. So, first of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody. Really happy that you're here today. And thank you for joining us. We've got so much support and loads of people sharing over the last couple of weeks. So just wanted to shout out a few people. So I wanted to say thank you to Frank Foley, who's always listening and sharing, and Secret Keeper, Holly Hart, Estival, Peter Bidshaw. I think we've had 2,000 downloads in the last 30 days, which is amazing. We've had so many strangers, people that don't know the show, that have found us through other ways. We're already at 300, the one that we uploaded, the Thought Trap, which we've had some really amazing comments about. Thank you to everyone that's listening. Thank you to everyone for sharing. And yeah, just thank you for being here. It's grown so organically, but it feels like it's kind of snowballing now, Miles, doesn't it? A few things have changed in the last couple of weeks, real positive things for OneMinding. And yeah, really looking forward to sharing them with you. But the most important thing is that it feels like almost it's a light in this dark time, and it's very, very special. So thank you, all of you.
Yeah, I think it's just the feedback that we get is amazing. You know, we've had a few messages this week from people that have really had quite profound shifts through listening, and that's what we've done it for. You know, we're here to help people that they can just tune into something, drop out of the world and have a nice hour just listening to how the mind really works, because it's so easy to forget. You know, I forget it too. We're talking about is invisible, and this world is incredibly visible. So we're always going to get caught up and forget where our experience is actually coming from. So these reminders are incredibly important. And as Michael Neal, one of the most famous coaches in the understanding, says, you know, stay in the conversation. And I think that's really important. So, you know, all you guys that come every week, you're doing really well by actually doing that. So thank you for being here. Put down what you're carrying around, you know, the heavy thinking, what looks like problems, what looks like things that are really important to deal with right now. We don't want those with us for the next hour. You can just leave those at the door and kind of just let your problems melt away. Listen over the hour and just see what looks different at the end of the call, and hopefully something will. Fear is a huge subject. It's described as an unpleasant emotion caused by threat or danger. Can really see how it can play an important role if we are in danger. It creates physical symptoms, it creates emotional symptoms, we all experience it differently. But actually, it comes from our reptilian brain. It's kind of this old part of our brain that's programmed to help us survive. And for most of us, we're not in a world where we need to have to worry too much about survival anymore. So for me, it's so easy that our brains seem to get flipped into this fear when there's nothing really going on. So if you think about that threat of danger or pain, actually most of us aren't experiencing fear when that is the case. We're experiencing fear when our mind is making up a story. Okay, fear is incredibly helpful if we are in danger. It gets us moving, but it's not helpful when we're not. And for most of us, we're actually not. There's anxiety, and it can go to the extreme of phobias. A phobia is like a twisting to me of the normal fear response. It's like it looks so real and so solid. It's like it's directed to something, it's directed to a situation, but there isn't any present danger. And when it comes, it can be so overwhelming. I mean, phobias can be really, really intense, and the reaction just takes you over. And what happens, unfortunately, with phobias, it tends to worsen over time because the response really takes hold. There's some quite common phobias like spiders, snakes, and heights, flying. And then there's some really random ones like fear of baked beans. I mean, people actually have phobias. Americans, I don't know if you know it, it's not only you, but there's some English people that also have phobias of baked beans. And then we can create fear around future events, imagined events, the world, or maybe there'll be a war, maybe there'll be nuclear war, there's the unknown. And another huge one is actually fear of change. A lot of people, without realizing it, often have a huge fear of change, and that can keep us really stuck. And we know how powerful fear is. It can really kick in some intense symptoms. We can get the chest pains, dry mouth, nausea, heartbeat, shortness of breath, sweating, trembling. People can get upset stomachs. And we can really see how powerful the mind is when we look at symptoms, because all of that is created by our minds and nothing else. And to see that people end up in hospital thinking that there's something seriously wrong with them, and it's a mind creation. So what we do here is really helpful because we get you to understand a little bit deeply how the mind works. When we see more deeply how the mind works and we understand it a little better, those fear responses don't take hold in quite the same way. Okay, so what we're doing here, we're going beyond a coping mechanism. We're going beyond tools. We're going beyond techniques. We're actually starting to observe that we have this mind and what this mind does. And the thought that it makes look real, it lights it up and it makes it look real. We even have this invisible thinking. Sometimes we can actually be scared without knowing why we're scared. We can sit there and think, oh, I feel fearful, but I have no idea why. And that's like the invisible thinking that we can also have. There's something in the mind, it can create danger out of nowhere, out of nothing. And the logical mind can often think, oh, this is silly, I shouldn't feel like that. But we do, and often the response isn't something we can control. But what I want to point you back to tonight is that there is this psychological immune system that points to psychological well-being, and we all have it. And this psychological immune system is these three principles. It's understanding that it's not getting into the mind and looking at the phobias and the fears and trying to work them out and the overanalysis of them that actually finds us in a place of peace. It's actually when we just can sit back, leave the thinking alone, observe it, and it will begin to settle. It's like if you look at nature and there's a bucket of dirty water, you'd want to leave it alone for the dirt to settle to the bottom and the clear water to appear. And that's our psychological immune system. And for many of us, we don't know we've got one, or we didn't know that we have one. It's a bit like the immune system. Generally it doesn't need much help. If you cut yourself, you will heal. The body has an intelligence that it knows what to do. And we forget that the mind also has the intelligence. And what we tend to do, where we've been lost, is that we have this mind and we believe that it needs fixing in some way. We see the mind and we get scared, and it's like we have to analyze and we have to fix. And it's so interesting. The mind is counterintuitive to the mind, because what it really should do is just leave it alone. It's like, if it's not real, leave it. And I promise you it will settle. It will fly by like clouds in the sky. There's nothing actually there. what's really interesting is that a thought in and of itself is completely safe. And I think there's something in beginning to explore and see the safety of thought that we haven't done. We've had such a unhelpful relationship with our thinking that we don't see this safety. We see it as something that we need to be in battle with, something we need to cure. Or if I think more, I'm going to cure my thinking. And it's like, no, it just doesn't work like that. And so the beauty of the principles is pointing back to this fact, I believe, of a psychological immune system. Leave it alone. Let it settle. And the other thing with letting it settle is when we're caught up, when we're in this fear, if we leave it alone, we're not going to have unhelpful behaviours. There's a lot of behaviours that come from fear. In fact, so many behaviours come from fear. There's, the addictive behaviours, drinking. If you get scared, it's like, what are you going to do to calm your nerves? Drinking, drugs, shopping, sex, whatever it is, food. We run to comfort in the outside world when the comfort is always within us. So this psychological immune system that we're pointing to is always working. It's just that we override it with so much unhelpful thinking because the mind is always going to tell you it knows better. The mind is always going to come in and go, the mind can sort it out. This is on the mind. Let me sort it out. But it's nothing to do. The mind's so unhelpful. Actually what we're doing is we're adding more to the problem because what we're doing is we're getting more thought, and more thought causes more feeling. And if that thinking is unhelpful, it's going to cause more fearful thinking. Okay, that's the system, and it's understanding it that starts to give us some peace of mind, starts to put fear in its place. When I get scared now, I don't go into the analysis of it. I don't even work out why it is. I just know it's thought. Full stop. It is thought. And, we're all designed for life, but we're not designed for overthinking. This is what's really interesting. If you were up against something fearful in the moment, more than likely you would deal with it and you would do what you needed to do. If you were in danger, you would run away. You would do whatever looked the most logical thing for you to do. But the thought of fear, that sends us crazy. So we're going back to, what are we built for? We're built for the moment. We're not built for all the noise the mind makes. In the moment, we're responsive. And this is a universal system. This is every one of us. But we make this fear look real. We make these beliefs look real because we've been going in the wrong direction. We've been looking at the mind and thought as if it was telling us the truth. We've been getting stuck into our thinking and trying to add more thinking to cure more thought. We've been trying to fix ourselves when we don't need fixing. Fear makes us shrink our worlds down to the sides of the thoughts that we're having. And if they're fearful thoughts, that limits us and limits our world. So we're talking here about opening up. We're talking about seeing things differently. We're talking about what if how I've been looking at my mind and the world is getting it wrong? What if there's another way to see humanity, to see how humans work, to see how the world works, that is going to be more helpful for me, that's going to allow me to not get caught up in this fearful thinking. Disclaimer, as I always say every week, of course I get caught up in fearful thinking from time to time. We are all human and we all are suffering from the human condition. And my imagination can run riot, just like the best of anyone. But I do catch myself. I do realise what's going on. But imagination isn't reality. But can you see how creative our minds are, that those fear imaginings that it makes up, that make it look so real? And do you know what really cements it as being real for us is the fact that when we have this fearful thinking, of course, because thought matches feeling in the moment, the feeling is going to be bad. We're going to feel bad because we're in our fearful thought. And instead of saying, oh, I'm going in the wrong direction, I feel bad, this must mean I'm overthinking, we go, I feel bad, this must mean that what my mind is saying is true right now. Okay, so can you see that subtle difference of being onto what your feelings are actually meaning? They're not confirming that thought is telling you the truth. They're confirming that thought is going off. It's going into a place that is going to be unhelpful for you and is not true. It's more important what we are looking with, what we're looking through, than what we're looking at. It's coming from us. Life is coming through us, not coming at us. So when we see the truth of these principles, a lot of that unhelpful and unnecessary thinking falls away. And as I say every week, that's freedom. That's where freedom from this fear lives. Now, is every fear going to fall away? No. I have a fear of heights. I still have a fear of heights. I understand its thought. I know there's absolutely no reality to it. But can I still get a little bit caught up in that? Absolutely. Is it as bad? Probably not. But it's still there. Now, another fear has fallen away, and we're going to talk about that a bit later because that's relevant to one of the questions that somebody has asked. So I couldn't choose. Again, it's like my immune system works how it works, my psychological immune system. I could not choose which thinking would fall away, what phobia would disappear, and what one would kind of stay. But I can guarantee you one is completely gone and one is still around to a certain extent. But it hasn't been from working on myself. It hasn't been from overthinking. It hasn't been from actually a doing. It's been because there's some part of me that it doesn't make sense to have that fear anymore. I've seen that fear is made of thought. Okay, so the areas where you're not seeing its thought are just the areas where it still looks real to you. And it's so simple because at some point, all it has to do is be seen as thought and it will fall away. But we can't logically do that. Okay, this isn't a logical, okay, I'm just going to see that as thought now and I'm going to be okay, because it's deeper than that. I wish it was. I wish we could just go, yeah, I'm decided I'm not scared of that anymore. That comes from a deeper place. And so that deeper place, when we see something as true in regard to our true nature, in regard to the principles, in regard to the system that's working through us all the time, something will change. But again, we never know what part is going to fall away, what unhelpful thinking is going to fall away. But it's so beautiful when it does, and it's so natural, and it doesn't come back because it's gone so organically. I wrote something a little while ago. Fear is not your enemy. It is a feeling that is letting you know that your thinking is off. Nothing to do but notice it is thought. Thought created and has nothing to do with your reality. Your feelings do not know anything about your life or your circumstances. They are just a reflection of thought in the moment. When we see this fear and anxiety lose their power, they were only a trick of the mind all along. We see through the illusion of fear and live our lives fully, regardless of what we are feeling. In that simple truth, freedom lies. So what I'm pointing to there, which I think is incredibly helpful for the practical that we're talking about, we talk about a very profound understanding that leads to a very practical experience, is that once you're onto that fear feeling and know it's thought, you can still have it and not shut your life down. Okay, so if I have a day where I'm feeling maybe a little bit anxious, I won't shut myself away like I used to. I will go out and live, because I will understand that that anxiety has no meaning. It has no bearing on who I am. It has no bearing on my life. I don't have to close down. What I can do is I can actually go out and have an experience of life. And at some point, I'm sure that feeling will fall away because I'm not paying attention to it. I'm not letting it rule my life. So we can actually override the feeling. It doesn't mean to say the feeling's definitely going to go, but we can override it because we now know what it's made of and we don't need to make our world small because of it. Seeing through all these illusions that the mind creates, letting thoughts pass by like clouds in the sky, seeing the simplicity of the design of who we are. When I said earlier about that fear of change, How huge is fear of change for everybody? It's as if there's some kind of safety in things staying the same. And there never is. That's an illusion. Anything can happen at any time. We're not in control of that. Everything keeps changing. Whether we're aware of it or not, we live in a world of creation and destruction. We as beings are created and then will be destroyed. So it's so interesting how we get so caught up in wanting things to be the same so we feel secure. There's no safety in sameness. It's an illusion. It's a bit like worrying doesn't make you more caring. People get so lost in this idea that, oh, I worry, I love them, I worry about them. Can't you just love them? What does worry add? Milder form of fear, worry, anxiety, all these different ways we express fear. But it isn't our enemy. You know, sometimes it can be helpful, and often it's just telling you that you're just seeing things in the wrong way. You just need to flip it. You've got to go from outside to inside. What this understanding points to at the profoundest level is that we are one. And I think if we truly saw how connected we are to all things, to everything, that there is no separation, if we saw how supported we are by the truth of who we really are, if we really understood our nature and really connected to this love that is everything, I think that fear would just become less too. At the deepest level of what we're pointing to, being scared doesn't make any sense. This essence, this energy of who we are that comes into form, it is oneness. It can't be anything other than that. There was nothing and now there's everything. So everything is connected. And I think there's a lot of us that can feel fearful when we forget that, because there's such comfort in remembering where home is. Not your physical home, and not your security in your bank account or your how many Bitcoin you have, but the home within you that's there before you were born and will be there after you die. And that energy that is the nothingness that came into everything. And when we touch that, when we see that, fear can't exist. It can't exist from that space. I always see part of my work with someone is, yes, I'll show them the system of the principles and the understanding, but guiding them back to remembering who they really were. Or it's not even remembering, I guess it's feeling. There's a feeling that comes with it. And there's a feeling of such peace and security, but not the security of the mind, something deeper, something more serene. You will have all have felt that. You may have applied it to the outside world when you felt it, but you would have all have had it, when you've held your child for the first time, or you've looked at a sunset on a beach on a beautiful day and you touch that space. That's what we're pointing to here. That's where our true healing comes. But the mind tries to take that over. The mind tries to say, no, not there. I'm the boss, come back here. It's just in exploring, taking the time to inquire into the essence of the true self. And it's great. The principles are wonderful. It's wonderful, as you know, to look at thought. You guys, most of you are here every week. And the people that listen on to podcasts, it's so helpful to understand what thought is. But there's something deeper available too. And for me, it's look in that direction. What does that look like to you? Don't take my word for it. See what it means to you, because that collapsing of what looks real but isn't, and that coming home to who we really are, then the outside world and all that fear loses its power. Yeah, then we see that the true currencies are love and compassion. And that's what's needed most in the world right now. What if we all came home? We all have that available to us. It looks like there's something to do, but it's effortless. It's actually effortless. It's when you stop efforting When you stop doing, it's just there. It's the awareness before you have to do anything. When you're just sat, you're just at peace, the mind is settled and quiet, and you can just fall out of the mind, just be in that moment, that presence, that where you are. It's effortless, it's just there, but we effort so much and take ourselves out of it with our minds, with our wants and our needs and our insecurities and our fears. But I guarantee you come home and you touch that place and all of that dissolves. It dissolves for a while. As I said, I don't live there. I visit. But what a place to visit. If I'm in my head, I know I'm not in the now. If I'm in the now, I know that it's effortless and I'm aware. Everything just feels perfect. There's nothing to fight against. It's just life simply as it is. It's a beautiful exploration. Thank you all for being on it with me. I still get to see it new. And I just want to share a quote from Eckhart Tolle. Fear arises through identification with form, whether it be a material possession, a physical body, a social role, a self-image, a thought, or an emotion. It arises through unawareness of the formless inner dimension of consciousness or spirit, which is the essence of who you are. You are trapped in object consciousness, unaware of the dimension of inner space, which alone is true freedom. And he says that so perfectly. And I think it sums up everything that I've been speaking to over the last half an hour. You don't have to cure fear. You just have to come home.
That was really, really beautiful. And a few times as you go through, this happens every week, I thought, wow, yeah, I really used to see it that way. And sometimes looking at how other people deal with things recently, I've got annoyed at them and then automatically at myself thinking, yeah, it's because you do that. There is no other way apart from being self-responsible and taking responsibility for how you feel, because, well, not necessarily how you feel, but the thoughts that you attach onto. So, yeah, that was really, really quite amazing. And you said about comfort. Comfort is one hell of a drug. We don't realize it. I certainly didn't. And it reminded me of Sponge, actually messaged me a few days ago after seeing the interview that I did, because I explained that I had a breakdown in 2018 and me and Sponge are quite good friends. And he said, oh, wow, you managed to hide that well. What was it all about? And I just replied and I said, doesn't matter now. And just laughed to myself. And I thought, wow, I never thought I'd feel like that. That was a part of my life that I thought, shit, I'm never going to be able to get over this. I don't know how I'm going to get through it. I was so stuck. And now it's like, I'm so glad that happened to me. I'm so grateful. I can help other people. It's really put everything into its place. And I couldn't be happier for that experience. And if someone had said that to me a couple of years ago, I would have said, no way, absolutely no way. So comfort was massive for me. I was really sort of not able to do very much with my life. I went from being a million miles an hour all over the place, quite successful, to being, wow, I'm scared to leave the house. And it was such a, like, from night to day, I was just kind of waiting for, not for the end of life, just like, oh, this is how life's going to be now, if I can just make it through every day. And it was, wow, like the difference in me is huge. And it is definitely from submerging myself in this. But before, as I've done a bit of traveling, I'm in Belgium at the moment, and I met up with my friend and she just said, Gem, you look so different. She's like, your face, everything, you look like a different person. And I feel like it. Lots of different beliefs and things, all based upon fear, that I'm now able to question and say, well, actually, I'm not afraid of that. But before, I was just on autopilot, just going from sort of one thing to the other, thinking, well, that's the way life is. But now I can see it through now eyes, like present eyes. I can decide how I want to live my life. So it's just feeling control, which I think people always assume that everyone thinks in the same way. I've spent a lot of my life thinking, well, everyone must think like that, because you don't really know any different. So that was a big game changer, to know that everyone is on their own path and they're doing the best with what they know. That's really relieving as well. Just everyone's doing their best. They really, really are. So we've had a question actually while we're speaking, and I wanted to read it because, well, you'll see in a second, he's put laughing faces, so he's seeing the funny side. But Miles, this is quite interesting. I got my first speeding ticket earlier this week and another one today, LOL. When I saw the second, I was so anxious, and I kind of still am, about the consequences and whether I've got any more coming. I'm telling myself, don't worry, because all I can do is wait and see. FFS. So he's seeing the funny side. I guess the question is how to not be anxious about his racing car driving, which is getting him into trouble.
Number one, slow down. I would say that there's nothing he can do. You know, now he can obviously change his behaviour because he's got the tickets, but ultimately a ticket can't create anxiety. His thinking around it can. Our thought system that would say, I should not have speeding tickets, is creating the fear and anxiety, but the reality is he has speeding tickets. So if he can get into a neutral mindset about it and see that actually, you know, it is what it is, it can't be changed, just to really begin to use it almost as an exploration for what's this anxiety really saying? Is it saying, oh, you've got speeding tickets? Or is it saying that my mind's going in the wrong direction about the speeding tickets, which is what I was pointing to? And what he will find is it's his mind going in the wrong direction, because ultimately he'll deal with the speeding tickets. There'll be consequences. But again, even those consequences cannot create feeling. The only thing that can ever create feeling is us. It's our thought system. So if speeding tickets were a good thing and he was going to get $100 for each one, he'd be really happy. But because he knows it's going to possibly cost him money, I don't know what the rules are in his country or whatever the end result is, he's projecting into the future, and that's causing anxiety. Well, there is no future. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So just kind of be in the now, see what the thought system's doing, and use it as an exploration for this understanding.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect answer. And good luck, Kia. Stay safe on the roads, everybody else, as well. Oh, I've got something that I wanted to bring up, which is something that we laugh about all the time. My friends who know I've got to take the mickey out of me because they think it's hilarious. And it's misophonia. I've just Googled it to get the exact description. And it is people with misophonia are affected emotionally by common sounds, usually those made by others, and usually ones that other people don't pay attention to. So things like heavy breathing, yawning, or chewing create a fight or flight response that triggers anger and a desire to escape. And it is so true. A couple of my friends are very noisy eaters, and oh my God, it pisses me off so much. I've actually had to wear earplugs at the dinner table sometimes because I can't hear anything else. Like, who invented popcorn in cinemas? I've got no idea. But the sound, it makes me mad. And we were laughing the other day, and you said, well, you know, I'll just sit next to you and eat loads of crisps and say, it's just thought, Gem, it's just thought. Crunch, crunch, crunch. And I said, oh, don't you dare. But if I'm in somewhere where I can leave, yeah, I'll just go and have a walk. But it's like it with music as well. If there's music that I don't really like or is a certain pitch, I seem to focus in on it and it's all I can hear. And I just have to go and have a walk or something. So there's been a few dinners that I've had to make excuses or said that I've got a phone call just because I can feel myself getting annoyed. And I know it's really silly, but saying it out loud. But the more I focus on it, the worse it is. And now I've just answered my own question.
Well done.
Bloody hell.
Yeah, I mean, I don't particularly love the sound of people eating, but I don't get the fight or flight. I mean, I can get a little bit annoyed by it. But I think the best thing is just to accept it. I know this sounds nuts and counterintuitive, but I think with things like that, we just have to accept, okay, that's how I feel, because actually the resistance of it can sometimes make it worse. And as I said earlier about the logical mind can know it's nuts, but you still have the reaction. But it may leave at some point. and you'll be free of it, but you can't really control it. It's just something that you're going to have to remove yourself from, or find it gets easier, or find it sticks around. But as far as I'm aware, there isn't a cure. It just is what it is. And I think acceptance is huge. I think for anything like that, when we accept it, it's, oh, God, well, that's just the way it is. Because otherwise we get into a fight with our own thinking.
Yeah, I hear you. I do kind of feel like it should be called manophobia. People should be able to eat quietly. I don't want to hear what you're doing, So I'm staying with friends at the moment, and I've actually changed some of the meals that I was going to cook just to non-crunchy foods. So I've hidden all the banana chips, all the crisps, all the peanuts.
You're making it about other people.
Because I can't stand it.
Yeah. So that's what we do. I'm not saying it's, of course we do that, but it's about them. But it's always up.
Hilarious. Oh, who's that crazy lady walking around with headphones in all day? Oh, it's Gemma. She can't stand people breathing. It sounds so ridiculous when you say it out loud.
Oh, yeah, but you are ridiculous. We're all ridiculous, so it's fine. It works.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, yeah. I mean, we've got some other questions as well. Quite an interesting one that I think lots of people are thinking at the moment. And the question was from Secret Keeper, and it was around psychosis and paranoia. And the question was, are they really out to get me?
No.
There we go. Moving on. Next question.
No, it's so interesting. I mean, I had psychosis at the beginning of my breakdown, and it's a horrible place to be. And there was literally, I could see things that weren't there. My mind went absolutely crazy. But how I see it now is that it's almost like a warning sign. The mind's so out of control that I think it creates that almost to show you that it is that out of control. I don't know if that makes sense to everybody. It's like, look, you're going so far into the wrong direction that actually you're having psychosis. Is the mind checking out in that way? Actually, the mind trying to help itself? Because sometimes I think we've got these things wrong. And I'm not saying you don't go and do something about it and get help. I mean, it's incredibly intense. But I do look at these things now as red flag warning signs that our system is giving us. And sometimes maybe disassociation, psychosis, these things can possibly be, in my opinion, and from what I've looked into, that it's really your mind trying to help you, not go against you. But again, we think it's the mind going against us, and we get even worse and worse and worse. Paranoia again. The mind's just going out of control. The mind is making it about the outside world. So, of course, that's going in the wrong direction because the world isn't creating your feeling. So, is paranoia an extreme version of looking at the world that is creating your feeling when it isn't, when it always comes back home to you? I mean, I learned so much from my psychosis, and that turned into depression and anxiety, and that led me to this eventually, which cured me. But when I look back, it really taught me a lot about myself, about my mind, and about the fact that, we all have a mind that can get out of control at times, and to try not to be so scared of that. It's so easy to not only have fear, but have fear of our fear, have fear of our thinking. You're scared, and then you're scared of being scared. That's so much thought in the room. And I think that leads us to these really extreme states. And I really do truly believe they're the mind trying to tell us. They're the mind trying to warn us, trying to help us. Because I don't ever really think the system's against us. I always think it's actually trying to tell us something. I think we mistake it for an attack. And I'm not sure that it is.
I believe that too. And it's almost like sometimes you have to get so lost to find who you are. It can be a real confusing journey, but in hindsight, everything normally makes sense when you look back on it. So thank you for that question, Secret Keeper. And we've got Ward here that is requesting. So I'll just bring you up now. Thank you.
Hi, Ward.
Yeah, I'm here. I didn't expect to be dragged up here tonight, but thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Oh, that's what happens when you request, Ward. How are you doing?
Yeah, I didn't know I hit the request button. Sorry for that, ladies. I'm just listening into spaces. It is very early here in Australia at the moment, and I just conducted a BC pitch, and I have to conduct one in another 10 minutes. So I'm just, chilling out, listening to everyone. So apologies for getting up and talking absolute smack, but happy to be here. Molls, I've joined your spaces before, and you're a legend.
Oh, thank you, darling. Well, I'm glad you came up then, just to boost my ego. Thank you.
It's the accent and the glasses that does it for me.
Oh, well, there you go.
Thank you, Ward. I'll pay you later.
Oh, really?
Brilliant. Okay. Well, we'll go on to some other questions then, which is a beautiful one.
Why'd you mute me, Gem?
Oh, sorry. I actually meant to take you down from speaker. I'm sorry, Ward. Thank you for being here, and I hope your presentation goes really well.
Okay. I hate you now. Bye.
I hate you too. Love ya. Oh, never a dull moment, is it?
There really isn't.
Wonderful. So this is how to stop being scared of dying.
Okay. You know what I believe? I think it's going back to what we explored earlier, which was that who we really are. When we see the unreal nature of life, when we see the patterns of creation and destruction, and we see that before who we think we are, there's something more permanent, there's an energy that can't ever be destroyed, it can't be changed, there's something more to the human experience. And I think we can't logic away death to the mind, because the ego will be terrified of death because it's the death of the ego. But we can access and explore this deeper space, which I think gives us so much comfort, because we begin to see that the absolute perfection in the cycle of living and dying. We see that creation and destruction are two sides of one coin. We see the duality of life is there to be the duality of life. So I think for me, I've changed my fear of death by this exploration, by seeing through it, by seeing that it's the most natural thing as in the world. And what I find really interesting sometimes, and I ponder, is we have no idea, and nobody knows what happens when you die. I mean, I've studied near-death experiences quite a lot. And, there's always this release and light, and you can see that there's these things, but we still don't really know. These are just people's experiences, and that they come back with their finite minds and explain to us. And I sometimes wonder, what if being dead is better than being alive? And what if it's better than this? There's a beautiful teacher who's passed now called Ram Dass, and he was deeply enlightened. I mean, he really saw our true nature. And he said that death is like taking off a tight pair of shoes. And I've always loved that. Who knows if he was right, but that just feels so right. We're constrained in the physical. We're free of the physical once we die. So we have no idea what that experience is like. I promise, if you explore this, I think that fear will become less. I think there'll be an acceptance that death is inevitable and could possibly be one of the most beautiful experiences in our lives.
Definitely. And we see there's so much pressure with people to look a certain way, with magazines and things, and people, especially women, worry about getting older, wrinkles, grey hair, these things. But I always try and see it as be grateful that you're able to get old. A lot of people never get to get there. So when you see grey hairs and things, you try and feel the gratitude that you're here and you're alive. So that's what I'm going to tell myself anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, that was really, really beautiful. And we've got another question, which is about lots of phobias tonight. So I think it might be a good idea to do a space on phobias as well, because it seems to be quite rampant. We've got one about snakes, and it says, I'd love to know why I have a phobia. Snakes, even now. Just typing the word in, my skin begins to crawl, and I know it will take me hours to get it off my mind. Why? I've never had any experience with snakes other than in reptile houses or on screens. I'm absolutely petrified of them.
Yeah, that was mine. There was fear of heights and there was snakes. Snakes was so huge for me that I couldn't actually watch one on the television. I couldn't see a photo of one. I'd be like, oh, get it off. I can't look at that. And I've never done any work on my phobia of snakes. But for the first COVID lockdown, I was in Thailand, and I had this little hut. It was by the beach, and you had a dirt lane that went up onto the main road with all the shops. And I thought, I'm going to go and get some papaya one evening. And I'm walking up the dirt lane, and from one wall on the right, a big green snake just plops down about 5 foot in front of me, off the wall, slithers in front of me, up the opposite wall, and goes off. And I was fine. Not even a tinge of fear. And I was like, wow, I couldn't believe it. And it was so, it really, you can tell by I don't even have the words, because I was so stunned to not be scared, because my whole life I'd had that phobia. And I think it was just something via this understanding that for some reason that fear fell away. And as I said, I'm still scared of heights, but snakes seems to be gone. Now, would I want one crawling all over me? Probably not, but it was so phenomenal. It just disappeared, and it showed me that, wow, my mind completely created that. And then because it had been created by my mind, it was uncreated by my mind, which was wonderful. It was dissolved. It just wasn't real in the first place. Now, it's really interesting. I don't know why we get these fears and phobias when we've had no experience of them. I don't know what it is. There's theories on past lives or something you saw in childhood that you don't have a conscious memory of. But who knows? I haven't got a clue. But I know how powerful those fears and phobias can be. But I also now know that they can completely disappear overnight. So that would be my answer. It's like I don't actually know a clear answer as to why. We can speculate, but I do know that everything's on the table to disappear.
Wow. And it's so amazing how you didn't even think about it, but your mind was doing all of that work in the background, so that when it came into your experience, it was like, oh, it doesn't compute for you to behave in that way anymore. It's quite incredible.
Yeah, it's like a program's been deleted from my computer.
Yeah, it's insane. Well, we have to sort out the heights thing. So I'll make you a deal, like that swing that I tweeted. We'll go on the swing and you can just eat crisps the whole time in my ear, and we'll just be crying there. Very high, very noisy. Both of us like, ah.
We'll do a live unminding, yeah? Me on the swing at the top of a mountain and you eating crisps.
I don't actually eat crisps because even the sound of it myself annoys me. That's how bad it is. I know. I know. This is what I'm living with myself. It's a nightmare. Oh, wow. We have one final question.
Yeah.
And that is, why does fear look real? Which I think is an X. Oh, no, we have a pixel here as well. So let's bring up pixel before. Sorry, I didn't see you there. So thank you for joining us. And anyone that wants any last minute questions, please speak now or hold your peace till next week. Hi, Pixel.
Hey girls, hey ladies, thank you very much for the space, actually. I really love it. If I have the opportunity to be here, I always here. First of all, I just want to say, war dogs, that back off from Molls. Like, we're getting a wedding soon. So, yeah, that's one. Obviously that's the most important I wanted to say. The other thing I wanted to say is about the fear of death. Like, I had these feelings, the fear of death. I got these when I was in my late 20s. Like, I really tried to think about positively, is why don't we take fear of death as something positive? We are only here for a limited time. We know we go away, so why not just make the most of it? I really think that it must be, you need to put your fears away. You need to swipe it off the table. You only live once, sort of thing. We really don't know what is going to happen, and I am pretty sure everyone thinks about the fear of death because it's human nature. But we need to turn this into a positive thing. I really feel that we need to turn this into a positive thing. That's all I wanted to say, and I love you, ladies, and I really appreciate your channel and your space. That's it.
Thank you, and we love you too. And I think some people do use the fear of death as a motivation. So, some people do. It's like, they really want to live life to the fullest. But for most of us, we forget We take life for granted. And that's okay too. I don't want to get into shoulds or shouldn'ts of how people should live their lives, but I totally get what you're saying there. It can be a really motivating factor to know, we're not going to be here forever. And some people really grab life, and those people, and other people just, to us, maybe waste it, but to them, maybe not. Again, it's coming out of that judgment. It's allowing people to live in whatever way they want to live. But I do agree that we have no idea about death, and we should just really live in the way that we want to live, show up in the way we want to show up, because as you say, we're not here for long, and being alive is pretty fucking awesome. As far as I can see, it's like, wow, we get to have this experience. We get to look at trees and drink tea and meet people and hug and
get married and stuff.
and get married and stuff, yes. Yeah, it's a wonderful life. So yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you coming up, and for the proposal too. Thanks, really. You've made my night.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know how you're going to get your head out the door to make the cup of tea. You've had 2 declarations of love, 1 marriage proposal. We really are spreading the love, definitely. I'm going to set up a PO box for you to get all these flowers.
Oh, very good idea. I do love a flower.
So I think the final question will be, why does fear look real?
Well, I think that's what we spoke about earlier, was the feelings that come with it. So the feeling matches the fear that we have in our head, and we use that as confirmation of the fear being real, rather than seeing that the feeling is telling us that our thinking is off. Our minds are so convincing. They're so compelling. Thought is so compelling. Of course we're going to believe it. I still get caught up in it and believe it. But I come out of it because, again, this exploration, I think the more time you look in this direction, the more you get to see that, oh, actually, no, that isn't true. Oh, I'm doing that again. Oh, I'm making things up again. Oh, I'm believing my thinking again. We get so caught so easily. But that's, again, one of the beauties of being human. We get caught, we get lost, we get found, we have amnesia about who we are, we remember who we are. This beautiful ride of being alive. Fear's just part of that. We're not here to not have fear. We're here to have all the emotions and all the feelings. But the beauty of this system is that we can catch ourselves being fearful and see that it's not true and come back into the moment. Again, back into the now. That's always where the good stuff is. Right here, right now.
And it always was, and it always will be. And that's the most beautiful thing about it, is there's nothing to do. There's nowhere to go. It's right here. So that was wonderful. I just double checked the numbers, actually, because I thought we had about 700 listens on the Thought Trap Spaces, but there's 1,300 on that Spaces. I know. I don't know how. Yeah, so we're already at 1,600 listens for the episode that we put onto Spotify and Apple and everywhere on Tuesday. So the world is waking up. Something's happening.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say thank you all, really. Sharing makes such a difference. We had someone, he commented yesterday and said that he'd heard the Thought Trap and had shared it with 5 of his friends. And this is really the ripple effect. So everyone who's listening, whether you're on Spaces or on the podcast, please keep sharing. You don't know who it's going to touch and who's going to hear something, but this is what we're here for. We'll be here every week, and we've got different ideas about how to get the message across, but we really need you guys. So thank you, and please keep sharing.
And to all of you that come every week or listen when you can or listen to the podcast, just thank you. It's really growing. We're really getting the message out there, and it's such an important message. And we love you all, and we're so grateful to have you with us as part of this team of Unminding that's really going to be part of changing the world, in our opinion, because healthy minds lead to a healthy world, and that's what we're waking up here. I'm just going to read a quote, and then we'll end. And just again to say, please share this, please share the podcast, please share the spaces. And we're always grateful for donations too. So we have a donations page on our website, which is www.theunmindingproject.com. So thank you guys. And Gem, have you got anything to say before I read the quote?
No, just thank you for all. Well, yeah, I always have something to say. Just Thank you for all of you being here, and subjects and topics, questions, we love them. So don't have to wait till a Thursday. Throughout the week, if you think of something or something triggers you and you think, oh, I'd love to hear that spoken about, just DM me on Molls, because it will be very helpful for us, for everyone, for you. And if you've got the question, then somebody else definitely will. And you're never alone. We love you very much, and we'll see you next week. And thank you to Molls.
Yeah, and Gem, as I've had all the compliments tonight, I'm just going to compliment you and say thank you for being an amazing co-host. You really are. You're just the best, and thank you for being here with me.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure. Thank you. And I love editing the podcast and taking out all the... I love doing that.
Thank you for that too.
My pleasure. Love you, everyone.
I'm going to read. It's a beautiful quote by a lady called Pema Chodron. We already have everything we need. There is no need for self-improvement. All these trips we lay on ourselves, the heavy-duty fearing that we're bad and hoping that we're good, the identities that we so dearly cling to, the rage, the jealousy, and the addictions of all kinds, they never touch our basic wealth. They are like clouds that temporarily block the sun. But all the time, our warmth and brilliance are right here. This is who we really are. We are one blink of an eye away from being fully awake. Thank you, everybody.